On New Year's Eve 2014, father of three, Reginald Jones, went to a garage on the south side of Chicago, where he'd arranged to meet a man who wanted to buy some tires from him. Upon his arrival, however, 33-year-old Jones was met by a masked gunman who shot him 9 times, killing him on the spot. Although the case remained unsolved for the next few years, Cook County authorities eventually made headway in their investigation, as reported by the Chicago Sun-Times in December of 2017. Investigators zeroed in on 26-year-old Breonna Smith, whose jailed boyfriend Jones had been slated to testify against prior to his slaying. County prosecutors revealed that a year and a half before the shooting, Jones had gotten into a contentious argument with Smith's boyfriend, who ended up firing a gun at him, striking him in the arm. The boyfriend was consequently arrested on an attempted murder charge, and Jones was preparing to appear in court in support of the prosecution's case. Smith allegedly orchestrated the hit on Jones in order to protect her boyfriend. As of the most recent updates, the gunman was still at large, but Smith herself had been taken into custody and held without bond on a charge of first-degree murder. Number 6. Stoney Williams. In the early hours of December the 9th of 2022, a woman was gunned down inside the car dealership where she worked in Snellville, Georgia. According to a press release by the Gwinnett County Police Department, officers were called to the business for a report of shots fired. Upon arrival, they found 34-year-old Courtney Owens dead from an apparent gunshot wound. An eyewitness reported seeing a masked man armed with a gun fleeing the scene on foot. After about a month of analyzing crime scene evidence and canvassing the nearby area for security footage, investigators finally identified a suspect in the case. 23-year-old Wesley Vickers, the alleged gunman, was taken into custody on charges of felony murder, malice murder, and aggravated assault. Shortly after Vickers' capture, authorities announced that a second suspect, 41-year-old Stoney Williams, had been identified. While Vickers was described as the individual who carried out the shooting, it was Williams who allegedly arranged it. Although a motive for the killing wasn't initially revealed, it later emerged that the victim was Williams' ex-girlfriend and business partner. The man solicited the services of Vickers, whom he offered $20,000 and instructed to make the hit look like a robbery. Prior to the shooting at the car dealership, Williams reportedly plotted to have Vickers shoot up the home in Fairbairn, where Owens had been staying with a friend, thereby sending a message to his ex. Vickers, meanwhile, allegedly planned to take out Williams as well in order to steal an additional $15,000 from him, but the latter never showed up on the day of the incident. In April of 2023, it was reported that Williams had been located and arrested in Texas. He was subsequently slated to face extradition back to Georgia to stand trial for murder. Number 5. Josiah Garcia. A Tennessee Air National Guardsman came under FBI scrutiny after responding to a listing for a murder for hire on a parody website called rentahitman.com in early 2023. 21-year-old Josiah Garcia, who'd been employed by the Air National Guard for about 2 years, came across the phony website in February while searching for mercenary jobs online. He was reportedly in dire need of money to support his family and thus submitted an application for a hitman position. On his resume, Garcia described himself as an expert marksman whose military nickname was Reaper. He also allegedly got in contact with the site administrator for rentahitman.com, expressing his urgent desire for work. Garcia's enthusiastic application prompted the involvement of an undercover FBI agent, who subsequently posed as an interested party and arranged to meet to purportedly discuss a job. During their meeting at a park in Hendersonville, Tennessee in April, Garcia told the agent he wanted to do something exciting and that he'd previously looked into civilian law enforcement but decided it wasn't for him. The undercover agent provided the suspect with photographs of the fake target, as well as a $2,500 down payment. By that time, authorities had gathered enough to obtain a warrant for Garcia's arrest in connection with the scheme. He consequently faced the charge of use of interstate facilities in the commission of murder for hire. As of November of 2022, rentahitman.com had aided in the arrest of at least 30 individuals, according to the site's founder. Number 4. Matthew Muller. On March the 23rd of 2015, California woman Denise Huskins and her boyfriend, Aaron Quinn, were accosted in the middle of the night at her Vallejo residence. The couple were drugged, bound, and blindfolded by a stranger in a wetsuit, after which Huskins was abducted and held for ransom. Shortly before the demanded ransom was due, however, the woman resurfaced, prompting Vallejo police to theorize that the entire ordeal had been a hoax, orchestrated by Hoskins and Quinn for money. In the months that followed, federal investigators began looking into the matter, leading to the discovery that the victims had not in fact been lying. A Harvard law graduate and former United States Marine by the name of Matthew Muller was charged in connection with the home invasion and abduction scheme. At the time he was identified, Muller was already in police custody for a second home invasion. He'd been disbarred earlier that year after failing to pay annual dues and not cooperating with the bar's resulting investigation. It went on to be revealed that after kidnapping Hoskins, Muller took her to a cabin on Lake Tahoe, where he forced her to perform intimate acts on camera. He was initially sentenced to 40 years in prison on a federal kidnapping charge in 2017, but subsequently returned to court to face judgment for the repeated abuse to which he'd subjected Hoskins. He pleaded no contest to the additional charges, for which he was given an additional 31-year prison sentence in March of 2022. Number 3. Hyonkuk Kosayak. In March of 2023, the FBI announced the arrest of a man from Augusta, Maine, who was accused of participating in a murder-for-hire plot. The suspect, 41-year-old Hyonkuk Kosayak, first garnered the attention of law enforcement after expressing his desire to kill someone for money. Communications detailing his nefarious impulse were intercepted by the Bureau of Prisons in January of 2023. With the authorities discreetly on his tail, Kosayak met with an individual on multiple occasions in both New York and Boston who was interested in having the Maine resident carry out a hit on a businessman supposedly staying at a Manhattan hotel. Kosayak agreed to commit the assassination for the price of $50,000 and also expressed a willingness to travel over 300 miles to fulfill the murderous contract. In one meeting with his handler, Kosayak reportedly described how he planned to commit the murder, detailing his intention to use the arsenal of weapons he had in his possession. The prospective hitman requested silencers for the guns as well as a latex mask to circumvent facial recognition software. Following the shooting, Kosayak also planned to use a fake police uniform to evade law enforcement detection. As he was making final preparations, however, Kosayak was ambushed by FBI agents in Tarrytown, New York. The man was reportedly in possession of 4 guns, a bulletproof vest, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, a latex mask, rifle scopes, high-capacity magazines, and latex gloves. As it would subsequently emerge, Kosayak had unwittingly devised a murder plot with an undercover FBI agent who'd given him a fictitious target. He was held in custody on charges of murder for hire and possession of a firearm following a felony conviction. The latter count stemmed from a 2017 conviction for theft from a licensed firearms dealer. The maximum potential sentence for Kosayak's 2 criminal counts was reported as 10 to 15 years in prison, respectively. Number 2. John William Kirby Kelly. A former student at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, was arrested in connection with a swatting scheme he facilitated in chat rooms on the dark web. According to the FBI, 19-year-old John William Kirby Kelly conspired with John Cameron Denton, the former leader of the extremist group known as the Atomwaffen Division, to target various individuals with swatting calls in which false reports of imminent violence are made to the authorities in order to elicit a prodigious law enforcement response and harass unsuspecting targets. The individuals accused of taking part in Kelly's conspiracy consisted mainly of white supremacists who swatted people primarily out of racial animus. During one such incident, Kelly reportedly asked his co-schemers to swat his alma mater. On November the 29th of 2018, a bomb threat was made, prompting Old Dominion University officials to issue a shelter-in-place order. Law enforcement officers subsequently searched and cleared every building on campus before the order was finally lifted. A press release by the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia revealed that upwards of 134 fake calls were placed by participants in Kelly's swatting scheme, some of which targeted journalists, a historic Virginia church, an Islamic center in Arlington, Texas, and a former U.S. cabinet member. The young man was eventually arrested and held in the custody of the Alexandria Sheriff's Office. In March of 2021, having pleaded guilty to his charges, Kelly was sentenced to 33 months in prison. If you're only just getting warmed up, then we have our earlier episode on when filming your own crimes goes wrong lined up for you right after this. Stay tuned if you'd like. Number 1. Christopher Pope and Emma Hunt. Alabama man Christopher Pope filled a prescription for oxycodone acetaminophen at a Kroger pharmacy in Auburn on April 1st of 2022. The script bore the signature of a Dr. Sunil Sharma, but medical records indicated that Pope had never been a patient of Dr. Sharma's, prompting an investigation by local authorities. Pope, along with Emma Hunt, operated the popular East Alabama food truck Drive-By Tacos, which was established back in 2018. Auburn police pulled the food truck over in Lee County, and while no drugs were found in either Pope's or Hunt's possession, the pair were arrested in connection with their alleged prescription drug scheme, which reportedly dated back to as early as January of 2020. On multiple occasions, the Drive-By Tacos co-owners were accused of unlawfully filling prescriptions for painkillers at various pharmacies and drugstores in Auburn and Opelika. Pope and Hunt categorically denied allegations that they were running an illicit drug scheme and were bonded out of jail while awaiting appearances in court.
Number 10. Thiago Philippe Sousa Braganza and Walderson Jr. da Silva. In January of 2020, a Brazilian model named Ana Braga suddenly vanished from her California home. The 24-year-old had moved to Los Angeles in 2019 to further her modeling career, but January the 29th marked the last time anybody had heard from her. Braga knew two other Brazilian nationals, Thiago Philippe Sousa Braganza and Walderson Jr. da Silva, also staying in California at the time. The woman's friends reported that she'd become distant after getting romantically involved with one of the men. One night, video surveillance captured Braga entering her home with the pair, who later claimed they were high on an illicit substance. They maintained that Braga had brandished a knife at them and, while acting in self-defense, that fatally strangled her with a power cord. However, in a video they'd taken just moments after killing her, Braganza and Silva were heard mocking the woman. Her body could be seen laying face down with a cord wrapped around her neck before the duo hid her in a comforter. Surveillance video captured the men leaving Braga's home while carrying the comforter. They placed the model's body into her car and subsequently drove 1,300 miles to Oklahoma City. Weeks later, on February the 12th, police found her empty vehicle in the parking lot of a casino. Surveillance video from February the 1st showed Braganza and Silva abandoning Braga's car before getting into a green minivan. They then fled to Mexico before catching a flight back to Brazil. On February the 22nd of 2020, both men were arrested in the South American country and admitted to murdering Braga. Number 9. Maury Travis. In May of 2002, Maury Travis, also known as the St. Louis Killer, was arrested in connection to a string of deaths in the area. Between March of 2001 and May of 2002, Travis was proven to have been responsible for the murder of at least 12 escorts, whose bodies were found along roadsides throughout the city. Police sorted through several pieces of evidence that pointed to Travis, including a map that the man himself had anonymously sent to the authorities with the location of one of his victims' bodies. Investigators were able to trace the map back to Travis's computer. When they searched his home, the police found a chamber in his basement where they determined he tormented his victims before killing them. Recordings were found that showed abuse, torture, and at least one instance of Travis strangling a woman to death. He admitted to committing 17 murders, but only 12 bodies were found. Travis was arrested on June the 7th of 2002, but just 3 days later was found dead in his cell. Number 8. Richard Davis and Dina Riley. In 2006, Missouri police discovered the body of Michelle Huff-Rishi, burnt and buried in a shallow grave. Investigators found evidence that linked Richard Davis and his girlfriend, Dina Riley, to the crime. However, by the time the connection was made, the couple had fled and gone into hiding. While searching their home, the police came upon graphic videos that showed the couple torturing and abusing both Huff-Rishi and another woman, Marsha Spicer, whose body was also found in a shallow grave. After an 8-day manhunt, the police eventually captured the couple. Davis received the death penalty while Riley was given 9 consecutive life sentences for the murders. In December of 2020, it was announced that Davis had died behind bars at the age of 56. Number 7. Gregory Graf. 33-year-old Jessica Paget's mother reported her missing after she disappeared from her Pennsylvania home on November the 21st of 2014. During an extensive 5-day search, the police questioned Paget's stepfather, Gregory Graf, whose story about what had happened was inconsistent. Graf eventually confessed to the authorities that he had shot Paget in the back of the head and recorded himself abusing her corpse before hiding it on his property. At his trial in 2015, the jury only needed 6 minutes to convict Graf of first-degree murder, resulting in a sentence of life in prison. Number 6. Deidre Hunt and Konstantinos Fotopoulos. In 1990, Mark Kevin Ramsey went out to the woods west of Daytona Beach, Florida, with Konstantinos Fotopoulos and his girlfriend, Deidre Hunt, in what he thought was an official initiation into a criminal club. The 19-year-old knew that Fotopoulos was a counterfeiter and was interested in being part of his operation. However, Fotopoulos had no real intention of allowing Ramsey on the inside. The problem was the latter already knew too much and had threatened to blackmail the former. Hunt later alleged that Fotopoulos had forced her to take part in a scheme of luring Ramsey into the woods to kill him, threatening to do the same to her if she didn't go along with it. Once they got there, Fotopoulos started videotaping with a camcorder as Hunt shot Ramsey 4 times, thrice in the chest and once in the head. The recording was used as compelling evidence during their trial that resulted in both Hunt and Fotopoulos being sentenced to death. However, 8 years later, Hunt's sentence was reduced to 2 terms of life in prison. Number 5. Jamel Dunn. On July the 9th of 2017, Jamel Dunn, a 31-year-old Florida man, struggled to stay afloat after entering a pond. A group of 5 teenagers between the ages of 14 and 18 happened to be on the shore when Dunn called out for help. Instead of intervening, they got out their phones and started recording while they mocked him and laughed at his pleas for assistance. They filmed him for over 2 minutes as he drowned, and after Dunn's death, didn't alert anybody. His family desperately searched for him in the aftermath, and it wasn't until 5 days later that police found his body in the pond. Despite video evidence of the teen's complacency, a judge argued that while there may have been a moral obligation to help, there wasn't a legal one, as there was no law in Florida that required a person to provide emergency assistance. However, the Coca Police Department intended to charge the teens with a misdemeanor for not complying with Florida Statute 406, which stated that it was a person's responsibility to report a death if they saw one. The conviction would have only meant a punishment of a $1,000 fine per person, and the state attorney ultimately decided not to press charges. Number 4. Chavon Yilmas. On September the 16th of 2018, a UK teen was fatally beaten and stabbed by 4 other teens in what was believed to have been a gang-related incident. The victim, Chavon Yilmas, had ties to the Mile Road gang, while his killers, Aaron Miller, Caleb Brown, Jacob Morgan, and Ramon Juana, were part of a rival gang called the Black Tom Gang. Investigators uncovered video footage that showed prior tension building up between Yilmaz and his rivals before the attack against him took place. The 4 teens recorded the entire incident on Snapchat, which included the stabbing, beating, and bludgeoning of Yilmaz with a hammer. His friend called for help and the teen was rushed to the hospital where he died the next day. All 4 youths were found guilty at their trial and sentenced to life in prison. Miller was given a minimum of 21 years. Brown and Joanna were sentenced to a minimum of 17 years, and Morgan was sentenced to serve a minimum of 16 years. Number 3. Bethany Martin. In July of 2021, Bethany Martin, then in her late teens, was walking through a Texas neighborhood with her friend when they came across the body of a 25-year-old man in a drainage ditch. Martin's friend took a video which they later posted to Snapchat of her removing a necklace from the dead man's corpse. The friend also took the pendant from the necklace with the intention of keeping it, stating that it matched her style. The girls then called the police to report the body. During the investigation that followed, law enforcement was informed of Martin's video, which had since gone viral. Upon seeing the recording, the police arrested and charged Martin as an adult with felony theft from a human corpse or grave, but she was released on $2,000 bail. The friend who was with her also faced charges, but due to her younger age, she was charged as a minor. The man was identified as Marcus Adams. The pendant that the girls had stolen was returned to Adams's family. Number 2. Mark Masters and Sean Thompson. In September of 2008, 3 English teenagers, 19-year-old Mark Masters, Sean Thompson aged 17, and a younger female friend were involved in brutally attacking an innocent man, which ultimately led to his death. Masters and Thompson were playing Happy Slap, a gruesome game that essentially involved beating up random people on the street. On one particular day, the trio targeted 29-year-old Gavin Waterhouse. Masters and Thompson asked their friend to record the attack with her phone while they assaulted him. In spite of his injuries and losing consciousness, Waterhouse initially survived his ordeal. However, he didn't go to a hospital for treatment and died 3 days later from a ruptured spleen. The teens posted the video online, which was used as evidence to convict them for the attack. Masters was sentenced to 7 years and Thompson to 6 years in juvenile detention facilities for manslaughter, while the friend who recorded the attack received 2 years for aiding and abetting. Number 1. Luca Maniota. In 2010, Canadian man Luca Maniota started uploading gruesome videos that showed him killing kittens, but at the time nobody knew who he was. Groups of animal rights activists made it their mission to bring the individual behind the horrific footage to justice. After following up on clues from the clips, internet sleuths were able to uncover his identity. When they alerted the police, however, nothing came of it, which allowed Maniota to continue posting similar content. Then, in 2012, he uploaded a video on a whole other level. In it, he was on top of a nude, bound Chinese man, later named as Justin Lin. Maniota stabbed him 100 times with an ice pick and dismembered his body. The police was contacted and the killer was promptly put on Interpol's most wanted list. He was found within a month and arrested at a cyber cafe in Berlin. His 2014 trial resulted in him being sentenced to a minimum of 25 years in prison. The case was featured in Netflix's massively successful true crime documentary series, Don't F with Cats, Hunting an Internet Killer.
Thanks for watching. Would you rather egg a police officer's house or spend 15 seconds in the ring with a professional boxer? Let us know in the comments section below.